Good. I'm calling the planning board meeting to order for November 8th. First on our agenda is to approve the minutes from last meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Norm's
second.
Norm's approved. Bob's a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that approved. Oh, wow. Yes, Arlene, Brad's a voting member. Okay. Approve Arlene's voucher.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next on our agenda is local law 11 rezoning the Whitehaven parcel. Mr. Hopkins, come on up.
I have one handout that it's a copy of the survey showing what we're proposing to rezone. I think you have to have it. It's okay if I get it up.
Sure.
I will. Good evening, Sean Hopkins on behalf of Hopkins Storage and McCarthy. I'm here this evening on behalf of Gulf View Properties LLC. Hello, hello. I don't think I'm here this evening on behalf of Gulf View Properties LLC. Also with me is Frank Burbank and Rick Haight. We're here this evening in connection with the request to downzone a portion of the vacant property located on Whitehaven Road. We all know the property very well. It has a very lengthy history that goes literally back about 50 years. The portion of the site that we're specifically discussing, and actually have it on the plan, which is similar to the handout that I provided you with. It's currently zoned B1. It's approximately 14.3 acres in size. It obviously has frontage on Whitehaven. What we're asking you to consider, and ultimately will be up to the town board in connection with this future decision, is a downzoning of that property so that it matches the zoning of the remainder of the site. The overall site is approximately 65 acres, and the remainder of the site is zoned R2. As the board is aware, there was previously a multifamily project proposed for this project several years ago. Ultimately, that resulted in a moratorium. A committee was formed. Ultimately, new standards were adopted for the R2 zoning classification. We do think it would be appropriate to downzone this property so it coincides with the zoning of the remainder of the site. B1 allows some fairly intensive commercial uses. I think some decisions have been made by the town board subsequent to this being zoned B1 many years ago that are directing commercial development primarily to the area where we are now, the focus of downtown Grand Island. It is important to note that we're just here this evening in connection with the rezoning. We understand that there's an underlying plan, but it is important to note what we're proposing in terms of the overall R2 district would be expressly permitted uses. Would consist of a combination of single family homes on individual lots and then attached townhome units, 4-unit buildings as permitted by code for sale. That's really where we're at. It is important to note we did present this to the town board most recently during its meeting on October 18th. Obviously, they could not vote in connection with that request at that meeting because they need a referral or recommendation from this board. We want to present it to you, see if you have any questions. Rick Haight has been working with Frank on developing plans. And again, we acknowledge that if the town board approves the downzoning of the site, we'll have to come back to you in the future and then work out the specifics of the actual project plan. I don't know if we have anything to add. I also would note we did submit a rezoning application, short environmental assessment form, the standard documentation necessary in connection with the processing of a request to rezone.
I'd just like to make a few comments that I've made in the past. As you may recall, the comprehensive plan showing this area as a neighborhood commercial node as potential use of this property or this area in the future. And there are also a couple renderings of a mixed type use, commercial, residential use in this area. I don't think that rezoning this to R2 really fits in with that vision of the comprehensive plan. And I had mentioned in the past that if the town does want to consider rezoning this, that they should be going through long-term planning group and other groups to make sure that the comprehensive plan is potentially amended, or it's acknowledged that maybe the town doesn't want to follow the comprehensive plan. I believe that we should follow the comprehensive plan, and I don't believe that this fits with it.
Yeah, this was designated in the comprehensive plan as a hamlet area.
I do want to acknowledge, obviously, it's been some time since those virtual meetings last year, but right. Mr. Warwell has been consistent with those comments. We think in light of additional land use decisions that have been made since that point in time, that what we're proposing is more appropriate for that area, but I do acknowledge his comments.
Yes. I have a question. The adjacent parcel is this that says Associated Grand Island. That will remain B1, and what's the plan? That's a different owner?
Yeah, we don't own that site. The property directly to the east is not owned by us.
And is there a plan for that?
Not that I'm aware of. I defer to
There's no plan for that?
The owner of that property has not come to the town with any proposals or considerations.
Okay.
So what is do you happen to know what the acreage of that property to the east that would remain B1 is?
I think it's 5 acres, if I'm not mistaken, Sandy.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I would say that Chairman Bruno's correct, that it looks like, I would say at most 5 acres, given if you see our rectangle is 14.43.
Is there any way that this 14 acres could be utilized with some type of commercial rental space below and possibly apartments above?
Certainly something we can contemplate. It's not what,
or is it strictly that you're looking to do townhomes only?
We're looking to do townhomes and
only
individual lots with single family homes, obviously adjacent to single.
In this area, just to know too, this is a split zone.
Yeah, so right, this is one overall. I want to know it's not a separate parcel.
Right.
It's one zoning with 2 zoning classes.
Right, which is not ideal. Which is not ideal to have.
Right.
Would you explain that?
So if you look on what we've highlighted, it's blue on your plan, yellow on this one. That's actually not a separate parcel. It's part of the much larger overall approximately 65-acre parcel. It's just that portion, which is slightly less than 25% of the site, is zone B1. So we're trying to make this so it's consistent with the zoning of the remainder of the parcel.
Okay.
It's somewhat strange, but not unique in that this particular parcel has 2 separate zoning classes.
It is a little unique.
Hold on.
All right, well, it's had a little manifestation. It originally had a B1 zoning that ran, for lack of a better description, north-south.
Right.
When those riverfront properties that you see, that zoning R1B, those actually they're not riverfront, but when those parcels were proposed, and in order to do that, one of the things that was done is, for lack of a better description, is the zoning was turned sideways and run all on Whitehaven Road. One of the rationales being, you're going to do business and stuff like that, you'd probably be running it off of Whitehaven Road rather than off East River Road. Now, the split zoning itself goes all the way back to with the River Oaks PUD, the original 700 acres, everything that you see going on in River Oaks. It was originally a PUD. The whole thing was master planned. Okay. When and I apologize if I offend anybody in the wrong description, but when it went back, I believe there was a bankruptcy. When it went bankrupt and it was getting pieced and parted out, people were buying chunks of land. That board at that point in time actually took the development plan and said, okay, that's this type of zoning, that's this type of zoning, and literally painted the parcels with zonings that reflected what was in the PUD at its time. And so that's how it's kind of set. And it's kind of followed those developments. This is the one that's really kind of stalled. It's either this side or right adjacent. There was a convention center proposed at one point in time. You know, that's why we're, you know, they still kept it. And Frank literally said, hey, you know, when he took ownership, and he's had a number of conversations over the years with the board of what do we do with this? And there's been no move to change it because it would, you know, it could handcuff you for the future. And so, you know, it was always, when you have an idea what we want to do down here, come and talk to us. And that's kind of, you know, he's got that time of, all right, maybe this is time to work on this land. But B1, big box retail, I think we all struggle with how does that belong down there? A B zoning for a mixed use or something, maybe, and maybe that's a message to explore. But,
Yeah.
I mean, I would argue that the comprehensive plan went by what was there and said, hey, this could work better.
well, I don't know, B1. I mean, you know, the comprehensive plan, you know, I don't know, is the mixed use in B1 or is it a, you know, B2?
Right. But I mean, I'm
This,
just saying,
you know,
when you look at that master plan that we did, and that's just what's here.
Yeah.
Because you looked at what they did to Jim Maloney's Marina, they proposed townhouses on a landlocked piece of land in the back of it. It could never, ever possibly be developed.
Right.
So,
Right.
you know.
And keep in mind when a town updates a comprehensive plan, whether it's Rhode Island or any town in New York State, I mean, you can't spend that amount of time on every single parcel, right? You're creating a vision. It's not meant to be a literal map of exactly goes what, where.
I don't think
And I think to Brad's thing too, I want to say, Brad, maybe the north, south, east, west thing was like early 2000.
It may have coincided with, there were major zoning revisions done as a result of about a 5-year process, which came to pass in about 2005. So it's been about 16 years since the map was kind of, you know, withdrawn or redrawn, I should say, in a wholesale sense. So what you see is likely the result of landowners who, you know, were lobbying for certain things, and that's why, in part, why the process took 5 years to evolve. You know, be that as it may, that's kind of past history. Here we are today with, you know, decisions as to how best to subdivide this 65-acre parcel, you know, that makes sense in a context with everything else around it in a 3-dimensional sense, because what it is now is in a 1-dimensional sense on a piece of paper.
I just want to note, Mr. Starzinski is exactly right. When it got rezoned to its current configuration was as a result of the town's adoption of a new zoning code. That was a long process up until that point in time. I think it was 2005. What the plan was, it was a 1985 PUD plan that traced to all the way back to a plan from about 1970, right, Frank? And what it showed at that time was 25 acres of commercial. So the town actually took away 11 acres of commercial. It showed a retirement care facility on 20 acres with about 240 units, and then mid-rise apartments, believe it or not, on 20 acres comprised of about 240 units. And that was the 85 plan. When the town was going through that process, Frank and I were actually at the hearings trying to protect the rights to do that plan. Ultimately, the town board was not receptive, and kind of the compromise was, well, we're going to eliminate some of your commercial zoning, but we'll leave some. At that point in time, Frank was okay with that because we were trying to find commercial tenants. Ultimately, those efforts were never successful.
Brad, too, lot 1 through 6, I believe, were part of the larger parcel years back.
Oh, really?
So that was
Yeah.
what Bob was talking about, the north, south,
They
east,
were.
west. So I think that's how some of it got slid around to its current configuration.
And you're correct.
Sean,
Yes.
in the master plan, is there an actual map
Yes.
that shows us the zoning for that part?
Yes. So as Mr. Warwell mentioned, there is a future land use
And
map
there's
in your
actually,
2018 comprehensive plan update. And it's exactly as he indicated. I believe it designates as Hamlet. Is it business Hamlet?
Hamlet.
Business.
There's neighborhood commercial node, and and that's like a big star.
Right.
And then
There
the
it is.
orange is Hamlet residential.
And then Hamlet should really be
Did I see
B2
that?
designation, not B1.
Yeah. most likely.
If
Yeah,
you,
we recognize big box
So,
retail is
right.
probably the last choice now.
Right.
Just in terms of how we're seeing the island develop,
Right.
how safe
Right.
is happening.
Well, and
Frequently commented about, those type of things aren't happening in this day and age.
well, you can also say that R2 is not necessarily the right residential for that area. So I think it's more important to understand that some type of commercial is, in my opinion, more appropriate based on the comprehensive plan. Now, to everybody's point that B1 might be, oh, we don't want a repair shop or something there. Well, that's fine. But that doesn't mean that commercial should not be there. And residential may be appropriate there, but not necessarily high density attached homes.
Well,
So,
the rest of the parcels are too. right?
Yeah, the rest is our.
That is correct.
but my point being that I have to go by the comprehensive plan. And if the town board and the long range planning committee want to adjust the comprehensive plan, then so be it. But as far as I'm concerned, this would not be something we should rezone.
Or the board would have the opportunity to make a recommendation that it be rezoned, but that they also amend the comprehensive.
hang on, Pete Marston.
If this board would like this to go to the long range planning, they should probably
Articulate that.
I had recommended that a year ago or so ago.
Frank, could you
I'm
get a
look-
little closer to your mic, please?
Yeah, I'm looking at the map, which is very vague. It doesn't show any property lines. And it shows a large area that says Hamlet residential, and it's not correct because the stuff north of, anybody can look at it, it really is not correct.
Well, you have to read the definition of Hamlet, which is
Okay.
a combination of
So it really has no property
commercial and
lines. It's just a
residential.
general,
Right,
it's a
just
general, the whole corner there is a general. So I would say, hey, I don't know what that means. And I disagree that it contradicts the comprehensive plan.
And that's.
'Cause it's vague, you
typically
can
how a
take it any way you
comprehensive
want
plan
to.
is. It's not meant to be a
It-
literal
Right,
representation.
right. So I would maintain that it doesn't violate the comprehensive plan. And it's vague and you really don't know what the comprehensive plan says for that particular property.
perhaps you should read it.
Yeah, I mean, in my read of it, it's the Hamlet residential with a commercial, neighborhood commercial node is where commercial uses can be integrated with residential uses to provide services to the neighborhood. And in an R2, I don't see that commercial uses are permitted in an R2. So it would be excluding from that 14.4 acres any kind of mixed use commercial residential, although you still have this other person owned property 5 acres east of there that would remain as your B1. So it would, maybe that 5 acres could eventually be redeveloped for commercial uses or, B1 uses as it's existing. But the way I read it, it's not consistent with the comprehensive plan to make this zoning change at this parcel.
Remember,
And-
a town board does have the opportunity, and this is correct from a legal perspective, to consider a rezoning that's not 100% consistent with the comprehensive plan. They have acknowledged it and amend the comprehensive plan at the same time.
Yep.
That's all. it's done.
Yeah, and I personally don't have an issue with it land use wise. It's just that it's not consistent with the 2018 current revised comprehensive plan.
And as I acknowledge, Tim has been clear on making those comments since we presented this in January of 2012.
Agreed.
And also on page 66 and 67, there are 2 renderings of potential uses for that property. Again, I'm not, the town board makes the decision.
Anyone else have any other questions?
Just a comment, for the sake of consistency, and I realize that, a lot of things that happened a year ago, 2 years ago might be viewed as ancient history in terms of the plans that have been put forth, but in 2020, all due respect, Rick, Carmina Wood Morris, came forward with a plan that we spent a few sessions on various iterations of that. And actually, we're pretty close to, I think, some decisions as to how the land could best be used. I invoked and will invoke or re-invoke tonight the notion, the idea of a cluster development, which if I had to make a recommendation to the town board, it would be just that, to consider the aggregate of the 65 acres as the potential of a cluster development. And I'll cite local law. I can't tell you the number. I think it was local law number 8 of 2015, which was actually enacted in January of 2016. And subsection M of that says, given the goals of the R2 district and the benefits of increased open space, reduced infrastructure, and the potential preservation of environmentally sensitive areas and other unique characteristics of the parcel of land being developed, applicants for subdivisions and the planning board shall consider a cluster subdivision alternative for each proposed subdivision in the R2 zone. So my suggestion or recommendation, and I can make this as a motion, that recommend to the town board that they consider the aggregation of the 65 acres as mandating, if you will, to be a cluster development or a cluster subdivision.
Do you want to add?
Keep in mind, subdivision is, we've had this discussion, and we understand that language in the code.
Yeah, yeah.
Keep in mind, it says subdivision. We're not
correct
proposing entirely a subdivision, so we got to be a little bit careful. Cluster is not a zoning classification.
I understand that. I understand that, Sean, but you are taking a portion of the R2 and subdividing it into, you know, a few dozen or several dozen single family homes. So that is a subdivision.
Right, but that would be on the, we're not discussing the plan this evening. That
well,
would actually not be on the portion of the site work itself. So you know, you've said that, you've made that comment as well during those virtual meetings, and we know it's something that would have to be evaluated when we come back in front of you with the plan, but until we have the right zoning classification, it's just difficult to do that.
Well,
okay, back to your motion, Bob.
Well, I'll simply make the motion that the town board deny the application for rezoning and move forward with a discussion with the applicant of, and this might come back to the town board. I realize I'm getting wordy with the motion, but it centers around a cluster subdivision.
Do you want to add about hang on 1 second, Mr. Hopkins. Do you want to add about the comprehensive plan, sending this back, adding that to your motion?
If somebody would like to, amend the motion to add that, I'm open to that.
Tim, you want to?
I'll second the motion, adding that the town also review the comprehensive plan and whether it's appropriate for this rezoning. Because I would agree we should deny based on the comprehensive plan.
So that's the motion. Now, do I hear a second? Are you second?
That would be a second.
Yours, Tim, second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Norm?
Nay. Nay.
Frank is a nay.
Nay for me also.
Nay.
Nay.
And I'm a nay. So that motion didn't carry.
I'll make a motion to try and move this forward. While I agree that that parcel should probably end up being R2, I think from a procedural standpoint that it needs to go back to the town board for them to advance it to the long range planning committee for their input on this because of what they've stated in their plan. So that's my motion. Put it back to the town board.
Refer to the town board or the long range comprehensive plan?
The town board has to refer it to the long range planning committee. Exactly.
That's Norm's motion. Anyone want to add anything to that?
Is that a denial of this or just a referral back?
Referral to them.
It's no recommendation.
Yes, it's not moving this forward as it's putting it back in the town board's lap for a referral to the long range planning committee.
So are you saying the recommendation that the town board deny the rezone and subsequently refer it to the Long Range Planning Committee for further?
I guess that would be the best way to go at this point. Table this and refer it back to the town board for them to refer it to the Long Range Planning Committee.
Right, which means you're not issuing the recommendation yet, which that's
Correct.
okay.
Yes.
Right, Bob, is that what you're understanding?
That's pretty much not rendering a decision tonight, which would, it's still gonna float and be tabled on your agenda as an action.
Tabled,
And
yes.
getting refinement input from Long Range Planning Committee. Where would you roll your sleeves up differently, or if this is a palatable, feedback.
It'll come back to us again.
Right.
Do you,
Yes.
okay, that's the motion, but before we go any further, did you want to add or Bob, did you want to add the cluster part for the
I'd like my
town
motion
board?
to stand as it is.
Stand as is. Okay, second of Norm's motion. Brad, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Nay.
Aye.
Nay.
2-5. So Norm's motion carries. So you guys are going back to the town board to go to the comp plan to get them to figure out the Hamlet program and then back to us.
Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you.
We'll be back sometime.
Yep, hope to see you again. Okay, number 2 on our agenda, the applicants asked to be tabled. So we'll wait.
Just so you guys know the context, also installed in front of the CBA. The CBA table, so it's kind of improper for to consider that application in the way it's presented right now without CBA concurrence. And there's a possibility with some of the information that's come up that there may be changes to the plan that's in front. So it just seems appropriate to honor their request at this time.
Okay, motion to table. Brad, second. Second, Tim. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that carried. Communications received and filed. Yep, communications received and filed. Unfinished business 1, 2, and 3 to stay on our agenda. And I'm assuming that we're going to bring number 2 from up above down to number 4 on our agenda. Motion to adjourn. Second by Bob. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, could you get us off of Zoom, please, Pete?